Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our SBA update with Roderick Johnson of the SBA. He's a Lending Relations Small Business Development Center Project Officer for the SBA District Office serving the Washington metropolitan area. And I'm going to turn it right over to Roderick to update us.
Oh, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rod Johnson with the SBA Washington Metropolitan Area District Office, where we cover Montgomery and Prince George's County, all of Northern Virginia, and Washington, D.C. I had to stutter there a minute because sometimes I get Prince William County mixed in with us, and actually Prince William County, although it is considered Northern Virginia, really does belong to our Richmond, Virginia office. It's just that I get a lot of calls from Prince William County. So this morning, we're going to talk about a myriad of federal programs. And thank you for pulling that up. So we're going to be talking about a myriad of programs this morning. So what have people been hearing about lately? They've been hearing about the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. That's number one. And then the second one, I know that you guys have been hearing about, is the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. So those are like the two biggest things that people have been hearing about over the last week. And there was a lot of buildup to that because you guys out there were really interested to hear more about those than PPP. So let's go to the next slide, please. So where we are is both of those programs were supposed to open on Thursday. The portals were supposed to open on Thursday for both of those grants. However, we've had issues with our third-party vendor, and so the portals are not open yet. But what I've done is I've given you the URL for the Restaurants Revitalization Fund in the chat so that you'll have it. So when it does open, you'll have it and you'll be able to get into it right away. The other thing that you guys have been hearing about is the EIDL being increased from, and let's go to the next slide, please, being increased from $150,000 up to $500,000 as a part of the American Rescue Plan Act. Okay, so that was the other big thing you guys wanted to hear about. So in the chat, but I'm gonna give it to you here. In the chat, I've also put the email address in order for you to actually ask for the increase in the EIDL loan. So what is it? And it's all one word. It's COVID EIDL increase request. That's a whole lot, isn't it? COVID EIDL increase requests with the S at SBA.gov. And then for the restaurants, it's restaurants.sba.gov, okay, to apply for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund once that happens. Now, the other thing under the American Rescue Act is that there's supposed to be a targeted approach to the way that the calculation occurs. And let's go to the next slide. For the calculation to occur for PPP for single member LLCs, sole proprietors, and 1099s. Now, how are these programs divided? So you have your loan programs, right? So you have your PPP, you have your debt relief, and that still doesn't get a lot of ink in social media, but the debt relief is important. And then you have EIDL, all right? Then you have the EIDL advance, as well as the EIDL loan. You have the EIDL advance targeted program. And you have the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant. And then of course, you have the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. So there's a lot going on at the federal level. And frankly, it's a lot for me to keep up with, but I try so that I can give you guys the latest and greatest information from the SBA. All right, so let's go to the next slide, please. All right. So if you've been on with me before, you've heard that there's been an expansion for eligibility and how the funds can be used. You know that for PPP, that you can choose an 8 or 24-week covered period. I don't know why you choose an 8-week period when you have 24 weeks to use up all the money. And just keep in mind, I'm getting ahead of myself, but just keep in mind before you can get the second draw, you have to use all of the first draw, okay? So please understand that, because I'm still getting questions on that. There's a deduction of expenses covered with forgiven PPP loan money on the federal taxes. There's been an update. If you remember, there were 3 forms for forgiveness. The 35OS form, remember that only went up to 50,000. Now it goes up to 150,000. Then you have the 3508EZ form. That goes from, what is it? 151,000 up to 2 million, and then the 2 million to 10 million, which is the long form, okay? So 86 of the PPP loans submitted in 2020 were actually $150,000 and below. Thus, that's why they updated the 3508 short form, okay? And remember, for forgiveness, documentation is what's important to get 100% forgiveness.
Rod, can I interrupt
Go
you
ahead.
for 1 second? Joanne has a question. Go ahead, Joanne.
Okay, so I have a question about the form. You're saying, so we were under 150K and I have the 35OS form filled out. I still have to provide documentation with that to get the forgiveness?
You should. You have to show how the money has been forgiven. Excuse me, how the money has been used.
Okay, because I know you have to go through your lender to
Yes.
get this in, and their online application asks a lot of questions, and I thought that I could just provide this form to them.
So here's, all right. So there's the, what should I say? There are the rules, and then there are the rules, okay? So a lot of times what the bank is doing is, although what you say is correct, a lot of times what the banks are doing is also asking for that documentation, because they have loan review. So when loan review comes later in the year to look at their files, your file, then they just want to make sure that they have backup, okay? To justify why, why it was forgiven. And just keep in mind, the SBA has up to 6 years to come back and audit, okay? So you want to make sure that you keep that documentation for yourself.
And then if I remember from the last time that I was on a webinar with you, the lender has 60 days to review it and submit it to the SBA.
All right, so the lender has 60 days, then they tell you what their initial impression is, then the lender sends it to the SBA. The SBA has 90 days to make a decision. Now, admittedly, since we have the second draw of PPP, everyone is rushing now to get their forgiveness done. So the timeline on the SBA's part is sliding just a little bit past the 90 days, but typically it's 90 days that you'll be informed. We'll inform your bank, and your bank will turn around and inform you.
Okay. All right, that helps, because I was trying to get the information from the lender and they weren't being that helpful, other than they send me the link, do this, and I'm asking them. I have the short form, which my accountant says I should be able to upload, but now I understand we do need the documentation behind that. Okay.
I would make sure that I have it handy, because some banks are asking for it.
Yeah, they're not letting me go forward in the application for forgiveness because it's an online application. I have to put all of the information about the payroll, because it was used for payroll. So you put in all the information about the employees and all of that. Now, in terms of SBA, here's, I guess it's a hard question, I guess, because we had gotten our loan July 1st. They're asking us for information as of July 31st. Now, we had an employee who was let go for cause, and his quote unquote official last day of work would have been 7/31, but that was a Sunday. So do I include that employee in my documentation since he didn't technically work? What happened is we pay out unused PTO. So his last day was middle of July, but then he had middle to end of July, and then he had unused PTO that we paid out. So we made his last day 7/31.
Okay, so that's the true separation date, 7/31.
Okay, but it's a Sunday, so we still use that employee
Just, yeah,
documentation.
yeah.
Okay, and then is there anything I'm going to need to do in documentation wise? We had 2 people leave voluntarily. One left who went to another job, and then we had someone from our French office working here for a couple of years. And then with COVID, he decided to go home earlier than his expected date. He left the end of August. So it was a voluntary, hey, I'm going back home and working the home office.
So as long as you have their resignations, you're fine.
Okay, so it's just a matter of a resignation. An email is sufficient?
Documentation,
Documentation.
you have it.
Okay.
You have it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Now, by the way, that short form, really, if you have all your documentation right there with you when you're filling out the form, you and I could do it, right? So it was 15 minutes. It takes like 15 minutes to really fill it out.
Right.
And actually the form, if I recall, the first page is actually the form that you fill out. The next 2 pages are actually the instructions on actually how to fill out the form.
Right. Right.
Yep. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep, you're welcome. All right, so the EIDL advance no longer is subtracted from PPP for loan forgiveness amount. And we'll talk about that later. All right, next slide, please. All right, so if you remember, on February 24th through March 9th, should be through March 9th. I thought it was March 9th. There was a 14-day exclusive application period where the lenders could submit applications for businesses and nonprofits with fewer than 20 employees. That was the Biden-Harris way of making sure that mom and pop organizations received the money and fully participated in PPP. So for those of you that went to your congressman and said that that wasn't happening, the Biden-Harris team heard you. All right. Then there was increased support for independent contractors, sole proprietors, and eligible self-employed individuals. And you're going to ask the question, well, what does that mean? So let's see what the next slide says. All right, good. So if you recall on your Schedule C, when you were doing the calculations, you were using line 31, okay? Well, now you get, and that was net profit. Now you get to use line 7, which is gross income. So for some of you, when we were using line 31, you didn't have a net profit. You may have had a loss. Well, now that you're using line 7, which is gross income, that number really should not be a negative number, okay? It really should not be at all. So now you can apply the formula. Gross income divided by 12 times 2.5, okay? And just in case, it's 2.5 months of working capital, just in case you want to know where they came up with the 2.5, okay? So it's gross income divided by 12 times 2.5. That's going to be your loan amount. So you don't even have to wait for the bank to tell you what your loan amount is going to be, because you already know. You can do the calculation yourself. Oh, by the way, please have your 2019 and 2020 tax returns done already. Okay. As you know, the March 15th deadline was not extended for businesses. We're coming up on the April, well, actually, I guess for personal taxes, it's been extended to May. I think it's May 15th or 17th. I think it's 15th. Okay. So I was going to say, this week is coming up to file your taxes, but you know what? You still should. Don't wait until May to do it. Okay. Go ahead and get it submitted. And later on, we'll talk about why, because it's going to be crucial for when you get you apply for the EIDL funds that you've gotten 2018, 2019, and 2020s filed, okay? All right, so the new formula is not retroactive for Schedule C filers who submitted a PPP using the old form. So if you use the old form already, well, all right, you've used the old form and that's what your loan amount was calculated on. Now, here's the key, but in actuality, well, I'll go over it. If you submitted a Schedule C PPP application prior to March 3rd, 2021, speak to your lender to see if they can withdraw or cancel it and use the new form. Well, I can tell you from a practical standpoint, a lot of the lenders are not going to go back. Okay, they're just not. They're going to work with what they have because they have too many applications to process. Now, if the loan has already been dispersed and the lender has filed a Form 1502 report, which means that they've actually sent it to the SBA. That's what that report is. It cannot be canceled and no changes can be made to the loan amount calculation. Okay, so there's no going back. Either way, there's no going back. It is what it is. Okay, because I get a lot of questions about that. All right, next slide, please. So just remember, it's gross income, line 7, not line 31. Now, you may have heard about the SBA putting some holds on loan applications, and it's primarily for a couple of reasons. One, there were people that had defaulted or very delinquent on their federal student loan debt. Now, typically under normal SBA guidelines, that's a screen out, meaning it just shuts down, right, the processing. Because typically you cannot get an SBA loan if you have defaulted or you're very delinquent on a federal obligation. All right, then it also shut down the process for people that had a prior non-financial fraud felony, okay? Because under normal circumstances, you can't have a felony showing up, felony conviction. Well, now those two things have been eliminated. Work with your lender. If they still pop up, work with your lender. Don't call me because I can't do anything about it. Work with your lender. And then your lender is to work with their SBA processing office, which we're not at the district office. At the district office, all we do is just push out the rules and regulations for all these various programs. So work with your lender to assist you with this. And then for people who reside here, but they're not necessarily US residents, you can use the ITIN number, which is a 9-digit number. So it's like a social security number, but it's really an ITIN is what they call it, okay? For people who reside here, but are not necessarily US citizens, okay? So the ITIN can be used as an identifier for a PPP borrower. All right, next slide, please. Now, the first draw, right? You must have been in business by February 15th, 2020. You can choose the 8 or 24-week period. There are additional entities that apply, which should be coming up on the next slide. Covered eligible expenses are expanded, and you must apply before May 31st. Remember, they changed it from March 31st to May 31st or until the funds run out. Now, I was hoping Friday they were going to give me the latest number of what's left, because all they did was just give an additional $7 billion to the PPP. We were already down to about a little under 100 billion out of the original 284, out of the original 284 billion. So I'm not sure what the number is as of today. I'm hoping that sometime this week, and I'll send it to Margie, to tell you how much money is left, but I will please encourage you to apply if you have not applied for the first draw. Here's the good thing about the first draw. The old rules apply. You can have 500 or fewer employees, and the loan amount can go up to $10 million, okay? So the old rules apply for that first draw. So just keep that in mind. You can go up to $10 million. Next slide, please. All right, so yeah, I knew that who was eligible is coming up. All right, so we still have, our corporations, partnerships, the veteran organizations, destination marketing, chambers of commerce, right? They're eligible. All right, certain news organizations. Now, this one is kind of sketchy, where it says new eligible, and it says 501c. Now, I'm thinking that it's for social clubs. So what are we defining as social clubs? Congressional Country Club, Bethesda Country Club, Burning Tree, you know, those type, University Club, Westwood, you know, those things, okay? So I think now they're eligible for PPP funds where they weren't before. And then you have internet-only periodicals, internet-only news organizations. They are now eligible, okay? All right, next slide, please. So under the second draw, you have to show a 25% reduction in gross revenues. And remember, the first and second draw cannot overlap. So you have to use all of the money in the first draw. You can ask for forgiveness, okay, after you've used all the money for the first draw, but you don't have to ask for forgiveness to get the second draw. You just need to use up all of the money from PPP 1. The maximum loan amount is $2 million. You can't have any more than 300 employees, okay? And again, you must demonstrate at least a 25% reduction in gross receipts between comparable quarters in 2019 and 2020. So as an example, you would use September 30, 2019 compared to September 30, 2020, and you would have to show a 25%, not 24.8, not 24.9, but 25% or greater, okay? Because I get that question a lot about, oh, well, can we round up? No, it's 25% or greater, okay? That's what the reduction has to be. Next slide, please. So we know.
Can I interrupt 1 second?
Go ahead.
If it's under 150,000, they're not asking to show the difference of reduction. Just so you know, because I was like, where do we upload the 2019 versus 2020 for, like, for me, it was second quarter for each. And they said, well, if it's under 150,000, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, normally, yeah, yes, you're correct. You don't have to bother.
Now, when
Most
I
of the
did
people,
it for the PPP2, they did ask for that difference and they did ask for the reduction when I did it through the same lender.
there's a,
Under 150, the first part.
Yeah, the first part, not PPP 2.
Okay, so when I applied for PPP2, our first one was under 150. When I was doing the PPP2 application, they did ask for the reduction in revenue.
they're supposed to.
Okay,
There's some that, unfortunately, there's some that are not, but they're supposed to. That's actually the rule,
okay.
okay?
Okay, and can I just say to those of you who got on late, this is an interactive presentation. So as Rod's going through his slides, if you have a question, just, ask it, okay? Okay, go ahead.
Now, there's SBA.gov/PPP. There's everything you want to know about the first draw, the second draw. If you remember nothing else about the presentation, just remember SBA.gov/PPP. All the applications are out there. All the forms, the 3508 forms are out there. The interim financial ruling is out there. The FAQs, right? Frequently asked questions are out there for PPP. It is all there. Everything you want to know, okay, about PPP is out there. But they're supposed to ask for the 25% or show the 25% reduction. And since we're on that, here's the other thing. So if you have QuickBooks, CPA compiled, CPA, review quality financial statements, as the majority owner of the company, you must sign and date to attest to the veracity of the numbers that you are supplying to the bank. Now, if you get audited financial statements, you don't need to sign and date. But for QuickBooks, compiled, or review quality financial statements, you must, okay, sign and date them. Hopefully the lenders are not supposed to process the applications if that's not happening, okay? So All right, see, somebody just said in the chat, B of A did ask for, what did it say in the chat? The B of A did? They asked for the 25% reduction. I think I missed the last part.
Hi, Roderick. I wrote in the chat, this is Connie. I wrote in the chat that the bank that Margie and I applied for our loan through did not ask for any sort of documentation showing the decline,
Reduction.
right, showing the reduction. However, Bank of America for the did ask for the signed financial statements.
And that's actually the rule. They're supposed to.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting how the SBA looks at that other bank that didn't ask for it.
Well, it's on the form, you know, you gave them your numbers. They just didn't ask for the documentation now. Maybe they will after, but it was just, you know, you put your 2019 number and your 2020 number in and it calculated the, you know, decline, right? But they didn't ask me to submit the QuickBooks.
Because typically, how else? I mean, yes, you're going to sign and date it on the bottom, right, of the application. But, you know, when it comes to the document, what I'm worried about is the documentation that shows it. That's what I'm worried about. That's all. So that'll be interesting to see what happens on the back end once we actually receive it at the SBA. But the rule is you're supposed to supply some type of financial information. That's actually in the interim ruling. All right, so you complete the application. Hopefully the bank is doing it the right way according to the ruling. So you complete the application and then we issue the SBA authorization code. So that's actually the process, the application process. And most banks have a portal that you can go into, so you don't have to worry about going to sba.gov and actually getting the application. Most banks have the application on their portal, or they should, okay? All right, next slide, please. All right, so if the PPP loan is not forgiven, and I've actually been talking to some people who have not used the PPP the way that they should. So for example, they've only used like 50% of the money for payroll. Now, let's remember the rules. It's 60% payroll, 40% expenses, okay? So I told that gentleman, I said, well, you know, you just bought yourself a loan, okay? So I think now it is important that we understand what the terms are. So it's a fixed rate of 1%. There's no collateral, as you know, and no personal guarantees. There are no fees or prepayment penalties. If you receive the loan before June 5th, it's a 2-year repayment. June 5th and after, it's a 5-year repayment. Payments start once the borrower knows how much the PPP loan is forgiven, and the lender will notify you. Now, I know that everyone on this presentation is going to ask for forgiveness. So I know this last bullet is not going to apply to anybody on this presentation, okay? If the borrower does not apply for forgiveness, that's not anybody on this presentation, okay? Because all of you are going to ask for forgiveness. Payments start 10 months after the last day of the covered period, okay? So again, all of you are going to ask for forgiveness, okay? All right, next slide, please.
Roderick,
Yes.
you said 60-40, but it's okay if you use 100% of it for payroll, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, well, you know what? Thank you for asking that. So particularly if you are a single member LLC, sole proprietor, 1099, that is exactly what I would do, is use 100% of the money to pay myself. And I have the easy documentation. I have the 2 bank statements and a canceled check. And that's it, 100% forgiveness, all done, real easy, okay? So yes, you can use 100% of the money for payroll, okay? All right, So what are we talking about? Oh, all right, so you must apply for forgiveness. All right, okay. So we know that idle advances are no longer deducted from the PPP forgiveness payment. We know that now the expenses when you use PPP money is now federally tax deductible. You know, we were all having heartburn because for a while there, that wasn't the case. Okay, so now that's taken care of. All right, we have expanded forgivable expenses. So you can now use PPP money to buy Microsoft 365. You can use it to buy QuickBooks. You can use it to purchase Salesforce Pro. You can use it for now all the PPE that you need for your company. You can now use it to restock the inventory in your companies. Unfortunately, if you had damage during the disturbance that we had over the summer, whatever amount the insurance company doesn't cover, you can now use that money for PPP. All right, so the expanded expenses is what I just said. But remember, the normal rent, lease payments, interest to your commercial mortgage, your business Comcast, your business cell phone, your business landline, transportation costs, okay? All can be used by PPP. Okay, we already talked about the forgiveness process, 150,000 and below. Now, this was the other one we had heartburn about. So the forgiven PPP loan is not federally taxed, okay? It's not. Now, at the state level, and each state is different, that may not be the case, okay? But federally, it's not taxed. It's not taxable income. So here's a question I've had asked. So if you heard me early last year when this program came out, here's the entry. So the PPP loan shows up on your balance sheet on the liability section as a short-term liability, okay? Then it gets forgiven. So now we take it off the balance sheet. It goes over to the income statement, but it doesn't go top line income, right? Because this is not how you normally get your revenue. It goes down as an extraordinary item or extraordinary revenue, okay, on your income statement. So that's what it looks like, okay? And so some of the CPAs are, trying to wonder, because if you're in the forgiveness process, it may slow up your accountant from preparing your financials because they want to make sure that the loan is properly classified. Is it still a loan, or is it really now extraordinary income? So anyway, I just thought I'd let you know that. All right, next slide, please. So EIDL, everyone's wanted to hear about EIDL and the increase from 150,000 to 500,000. Now in the chat, I've already put in the email address, but I'll say it again, COVID EIDL increase requests at SBA.gov. In the subject line, you're going to put EIDL increase and your 10-digit application number, okay? In the body of the email, you're going to put in, again, your 10-digit application number, name, address, telephone number of where the business is located, and of course your name, right, as the owner, and EIDL increase, okay? So that's what you're going to put in the body of the email. But in the subject line, you're going to put your 10-digit application number and EIDL increase, okay? So because there was some information out there floating around that, and it may even be in the slide presentation, which I've asked them to change, it was the SBA would contact you for the increase. No, I've given you the address, COVID EIDL increase request at SBA.gov, okay? All right, now, unlike PPP, with EIDL, we're not trying to tell you how to use the money in terms of 60-40 or 100% payroll. So as it says here, healthcare benefits, rent, utilities, fixed debt payments, okay, is how you can use the idle money. The interest rate, 2.75 for nonprofits, 3.75 for businesses. Loans over 25,000 will have a UCC filing. If the loan is over 200,000, there is a personal guarantee, okay, for over 200,000. Now, 500 or fewer employees, all small businesses and nonprofits, okay? But if you have a question, go to the SBA.gov size standards, because there are, like the restaurant industry, with the NAICS code of 72, they can go over those standards, okay? All right, next slide, please. So we should have covered idle. Okay. So the loan limit is up to 24 months of economic injury. You do not need to submit an increase request. Well, you do. So I just gave you that. That's what I have to change. I got to get them to change it at the SBA. All right. So deferment, anywhere from 18 months to 24 months. So if the loan was made in 2021, the first payment is due 18 months from the date of the note. If the loan was made in 2020, the first payment is due 24 months from the date of the note. So you have a nice long deferment period, right? Before you begin to start paying this thing back. And I think hopefully, let's hope by in 2022, you know, our economy and things will be back to semi-normal anyway, okay? So that you can generate some revenue so that you can begin to pay these loan payments back, all right? Next slide, please. Debt relief, we don't hear enough about this. If you have a current 504, 7A or microloan, they automatically are being paid for 3 months by the SBA. You're supposed to be automatically enrolled, but call your bank, make sure they have you enrolled in this debt relief. And you tell them it's debt relief. For 3 months, the SBA is paying principal and interest through September 30, principal and interest through September 30, 2021. If you want a new 7A 504, okay, or microloan from February to September 30, which is when the loan has to close, the SBA for any new loan will pay principal and interest, okay? So far what we have is an increase in the idle. You have deferments for your 7A 504, well, not deferments, for the 7A 504 and microloan, the SBA is going to pay 3 months of principal and interest for you. If you get a new 7A 504 microloan, the SBA is going to pay 3 months of principal and interest for you. And then you have deferment for the idle loan. And we're going to talk about the idle advance here in a minute, because then you'll have the idle advance where you'll get up to $10,000. So if you got an idle advance and it was $3,000 before, now you're going to get the additional $7,000. If you apply for the idle advance, but because the money ran out, then the Office of Disaster Assistance will contact you and you'll get the full $10,000. So there's money flowing everywhere. And the SBA is trying to help you even from a cash flow standpoint. Yes, Margie.
The idle advance, though, is only for low-income communities. It won't affect Rockville.
If you applied for it but didn't receive it the first time because we ran out of money, you still will qualify.
Okay.
That's one of the other conditions, which should be coming up here soon. Let's see the next slide. All right, so it's telling us no action required until contacted by the SBA. So this is new. And this is what I was talking about, Margie. All right, so only businesses and nonprofits that apply for an idle and one, to your point, all right, in a low-income community. 2, they've suffered greater than a 35% drop in business. 3, they have 300 or fewer employees. Now, if you meet the above, the targeted idle advance will be available to you up to $10,000. Now, here's where I was talking about, Margie. Provide $10,000 to those who applied for an idle but didn't receive it because of the lack of funding. Okay. So that's the other criteria.
Excuse me, I just want to clarify that. This is Asif Chaudhry. So it's one or the other. In other words, if someone got a couple $1,000s before and they don't meet this other criteria of the 30% loss or the low income, they can still get the additional $8,000.
That's correct.
That's very, very good. This program is very helpful. Thank you.
Yep. So the SBA is mailing out. So the SBA is actually mailing out invitations to those who qualify. So they're going to send the instructions out to you who qualify for this. So don't worry about calling the Office of Disaster Assistance. Just go ahead and wait for the SBA to contact you on this one. Okay.
And by the
Alright.
way, the email is coming from targeted advance at sba.gov. So it's a third party. And
Yes.
it's legit. It's not a, when you see targeted advance at sba.gov, you're probably hesitant to click on it, but it is the third party that they're using.
Yeah. All right, next slide, please.
Roderick, if you did not initially apply for the EIDL, is it too late now?
Oh, no, no, you can apply. You certainly can apply.
Okay, thank you.
Now, here's where I would remember earlier, I was talking about 2019, 2020, and 2018. I'll go to the bottom bullet first. So applicants initially eligible will be required to sign a 4506T for the SBA to obtain the tax grant transcripts for further processing. So normally, if you've seen a 4506T, is asking for 3 years of tax returns, okay, 3 to 5 years. So they're gonna ask for 2018, 2019, and 2020, okay? So that's why I was mentioning earlier, get those taxes filed. Now, let's skip the bullet number 3. So another way to verify is the monthly gross receipts. And hopefully you guys have it, right? For 2019 and 2020, right? So by month for those years, and now a completed 2020. So you should have January, February, March 2021. So you're going to have all of 2019 by month, all of 2020 by month, gross receipts, and then you're going to have January, February, March 2021. And hopefully you're pulling that out of QuickBooks, okay? So if you don't have QuickBooks, now you can use that PPP money to go get the QuickBooks, okay? It's legitimate. All right. So notice what it says. Have the 20, we're jumping up to the first bullet, the 2019 federal tax return. Recommended to have on hand when applying. Now you keep hearing me go over and over about these tax returns. Why? Because there are too many people that have not filed their 2019 tax returns. And I've been saying to people, for EIDL and some of these other programs, whether it's federal or state or municipal, they're asking for the tax returns, okay? So please get them filed. And actually for the EIDL, your application is not going to be complete until they actually obtain the tax transcripts that were requested on the 4506T. So that's the other reason I really keep hammering home on having these tax returns, okay? All right, next slide, please. All right, here's the other thing. Please, only one submission, right? For each targeted EIDL advance can be made. Make sure you review the bank account information. Here's why. So you have Margie Graf. Well, we don't want Margie Graf's ABA number and account number when it really should be the Rockville Chamber of Commerce's ABA number and account number. But guess what? A lot of people are making that mistake. And so it's slowing down the process of this advance, okay? So let's make sure that you're putting down the right account information, all right? And look what it says in the third bullet. Ensure the information submitted is 100% correct, because you do not want to have it kicked back, because there is a limited number of funds. I think it's like $15 billion, if I recall, which is not a lot of money when you think about it. It sounds like a big number, but when you have millions of companies applying from across the United States, $15 billion is nothing, okay? So we don't want you to miss out on the advance because you put the wrong bank account information, okay? All right, so we're gonna be looking at things and hopefully your information, and hopefully within 21 days, we'll get back to you. Now remember, applications may not be considered complete until after the 4506T is received. So make sure that's done, make sure it's complete, okay? Let's make sure the bank account information is correct. Now, if you have any questions, don't email me or call me, go directly to targetedadvance@sba.gov, okay? Or disaster customer service@sba.gov, that's the other one. But if you really want to get to the targeted idle advance question, go to targetedadvance@sba.gov. Now, if you're approved, of course, you're going to receive an email and ACH deposited to the bank account, to the proper bank account, okay? Notice I keep harping on that because most of the processing errors is because of the wrong bank account information. So let's make sure it's correct. All right, next slide, please. Now, the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. As we all know, that portal was supposed to open on Thursday. It did not. We've had issues with the third-party vendor. I was hoping it was going to be open today, but I haven't received any information internally yet that it's ready to go, okay? So who's eligible? Live venue operators or promoters, theatrical producers, live performing arts organization and motion picture theater operators, museums, zoos, aquariums, talent representatives. Now, a maximum of 5 business entities related via affiliation, right? So you have a parent firm and 4 subsidiaries. You must have been in operation as of February 29, 2020. Now, you know, it says the applications were slated to open on April 8th. Okay, yes, the applications were, but the actual portal was supposed to be open, okay, and accepting applications. It hasn't happened yet, but the maximum grant is $10 million, which I think is pretty good. But I think this money is going to go fast because, again, it's only $16 billion. Think about places like the Kennedy Center, okay, or the Rockefeller, or the center up in New York. I mean, those are huge organizations that I'm sure are going to take a lot of money, okay? So I don't think this money is going to last. So if you are a shuttered venue, make sure you're ready to go, okay? All right, next slide, please. What to do? Now, you know, when I say ready to go, you're registered at sam.gov, okay? If you have a lot of questions, if you want to know about the checklist, eligibility requirements, there are videos out there. There are frequently asked questions out there at sba.gov/SVO grant, okay? Now, if you were in operation on January 1st, you're going to get 2019, you're going to get 45% of the 2019 gross earned revenue. So you already know what that is. You got your 2019 taxes, you go to your gross revenue, times 45%, you know what your loan amount is, okay? Here's the other formula. Don't you love it that I give you the formulas? All right, so if you began After January 1st, 2019, you're going to take the average monthly gross revenue for each full month in operation in 2019 and multiply that by 6. So again, you have your 2019 tax returns. You have the formula right here for you to determine already how much you're going to get. So you don't have to wait for anybody to tell you. You don't have to wait for the SBA to tell you. You already know how much you're going to get, okay? Just by applying these formulas. Next slide, please. All right, go ahead to the next slide. We've talked about these. All right, so the restaurant revitalization fund. So they gave almost 29 billion for grants, okay? For what? Restaurants, hotels, motels, Holiday Inns. All right, so you have a maximum $5 million grant location for an aggregate of 10 million. So you can only get up to a maximum of 10 million. That's a lot of money to me, okay? Now, you have a community navigator, which is a pilot program. Now, this is 100 million set aside grant for those organizations that are trying to get the COVID-19 message out there, okay? Go get,
Is that
you know,
Chambers of Commerce?
you know, I don't know. I don't know.
That's what we do.
So we'll have to, we'll actually have to look at the navigator to see, because I haven't gone out there to look at the navigator yet, because I've been actually focused on the shuttered venue and the restaurant revitalization fund. That's really what I've been focused on. I just figure people that need to get the message out to everybody will get the message out there. But the restaurants and the shuttered venue has been kind of my focus lately. But yeah, go to the SBA.gov navigators and see if the chambers are actually eligible for these funds, okay? Next slide, please. All right, so we've talked about the PPP, we've talked about the debt relief, we've talked about EIDL, the fact that it's now at 500 instead of 150,000. We now know that you can get an EIDL advance or grant if you didn't receive the money when you applied, okay? Or you're located in a low moderate income area. We know the shuttered venue operators grant should be up and running soon, as well as the restaurant revitalization fund. Both of those should be up and running. I'm hoping this week. I was hoping today, but hopefully this week. Now, before I forget, because this is what's important, for the restaurant revitalization fund, and I'll close with that, you're going to go to the portal once it's open. You're going to complete the form 3172. It's an SBA form. They're going to want you to fill out the 4506T. We keep seeming to come back to that, right? 2018, 2019, 2020. You're going to need to have either a 1040 with a Schedule C or a 1040 with a Schedule F for the farmers. If you're 1099, you're 1099. If you're a restaurant, obviously a restaurant, a point of sale report. That's like a restaurant's Bible, right? The point of sale report. So you got to have that. A 1065 with the K1s or your QuickBooks statements. So be ready, right? My point is be ready to have either of those forms to be able to submit with the application 3172 form for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, okay? So now you have what's needed. So now you have the websites, restaurants.sba.gov. You have COVID EIDL increase requests at sba.gov. You have the targeted EIDL advance at sba.gov. All right, and that's also in the slides here. So now you have all the email addresses that you need to be able to apply, right, for SVOG, EIDL loan, EIDL advance, and of course, PPP is going to be done through your bank. Okay.
I have one other question about the targeted EIDL advance. When you apply for that, if your 2019 if your 2020 revenue is higher than 2019 revenue, do you still qualify?
I think you had to show a 30% drop if you're in that low to moderate income. Can we go back to that slide? Because I'm thinking you still had to show a 30% drop if you were in, I think it's a couple more. Go back.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking, but
Yeah, because I think it is, you still have to show that 30% drop. Even if you're in a low to moderate, there it is, hold it.
But this is my area of confusion, I guess, because if you got it the first time and you only got a couple $1,000s, for example, like I said, and now do you have to meet these other requirements? Do you have to have 30% loss? And do you have to be in, if you don't have to be in low income, do you still have to be a 30% loss?
Now, you see the fourth bullet to your question, balance out a previous idle advance. So remember I said if you got $3,000, then you'll get the additional 7.
Yeah.
Regardless of if you're, in a low moderate income area.
Or regardless of economic loss?
Right.
Okay.
Because you already received it. So all they're trying to do is just give you the additional money.
Okay, so even if your revenue went up, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
So because it asks for that on the form, so I just wanted to just verify.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because you see it right there. You're balancing out a previous idle advance.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
So it's that one. And then to what I had said to Margie, that you applied for the idle, but you didn't get it because we ran out of funding, then you'll get the full 10,000. Okay. The one about the 30% economic drop and the 300 or fewer employees, that's new. But if you'd already applied, then you're going to get the full 10,000. If you applied but didn't receive the money because we ran out, you're going to get the full 10,000. Okay. Yep. Any more questions? The one that's really exciting me here lately. Oh, yes. Here's the other question I get. Assistance. Oh man, you guys have all type of free assistance. Your small business development centers, SCORE, the women business centers, the veterans, the veterans centers, chambers, actually. So there's a lot of free assistance. Please, I thought that last year I had settled the fact that you guys didn't need to be paying $750 or $1,000 for someone to assist you with forgiveness or applying for EIDL or PPP or having someone, this is the one I got, someone calling your bank on your behalf to find out if you were on the debt relief program. Really? All right, guys, there's free assistance. So you don't need to pay $750 or $1,000, okay, for any of these, to get assistance with any of these programs. Not at all. Call Margie, and then Margie will, if the chamber is overwhelmed, then, she can send you to the Women's Business Center or the SCORE or the VBOC, but don't pay anybody, okay? Not the kind of money that I hear people are asking for. And particularly, please, not for the 3508 short form. You don't need to pay anybody particularly for that, okay? Which I'm hearing people are actually paying people to get assistance for that. Because the instructions are on page 2 and 3 of the 3508 short form, okay? But if you feel you need assistance, call Margie. She'll lead you in the right direction.
Yes, we will. Hopefully no one on this call has paid for anything. Okay, does anyone else have questions in the chat? Roderick put restaurants.sba.gov and COVID idle increase request at sba.gov. You know, like you said, neither portal is open yet, but when they are, we can, you know, send out a blast and let you know. Does anyone else have any questions? I thought this was really helpful. I'm going to go back into the targeted idle advance, and I'm also going to check into the SBA.gov navigators. But this was really, really great and helpful. I mean, so many things change just to keep up with all these programs. So thank you for keeping us up to date. I really appreciate it. Anybody have
Yes,
any questions?
it's a lot. And, you know, and of course, Margie, whenever I get updated information, I send it to you anyway, so that
Yeah.
you can, you know, update everyone.
Yeah, I do. And I put it on our homepage of our website under news, you know.
Oh, good, good,
Yeah, and I also social media it out.
good.
I have a quick question just about who to contact. It's not about relief, but it's an SBA question, and I'm not sure who to call. It's about becoming SBA certified to be able to do government contracts.
Oh, through the 8A program?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna give you an email address.
Thank you.
So it's Lisa, Lisa, dot Avila, Avila, at SBA.gov.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yes, she'll help you cut through all of that maze,
Okay. Thank you very much.
because it is a lot.
All right. She can help with the eligibility for that, right?
Yep, the eligibility, all of that.
Okay, thank you. And thank you. This is just wonderful having these webinars and getting all this information.
Sure, yes. I want to make sure that all of you guys are getting the money that you need to sustain yourselves, okay? That's really what my aim is. I want to make sure that you're able to have these funds to sustain and then hopefully come back and grow your business. You know what? Oh, by the way, Margie, one of the things I didn't talk about was that if you get an SBA loan from your bank, you do not have to pay any SBA fees. So if you get a 504, 7A, or micro loan, there are no fees charged to you at all to get a 7A loan, 504 micro loan. Now, for the 7A loans that go up to $5 million, the bank normally gets a 75% guarantee. Now the banks get a 90% guarantee to do your 7A loan, okay? It's even great for the bank, because not only do they get a higher percentage of guarantee from the SBA, they don't have to pay the annual SBA fee, okay? So now the banks are really incentivized to make SBA loans to you guys. No fees, none.
It's awesome.
So if you're looking to buy that office condo, if you're looking to expand and bring on a new employee or employees, okay, you need to start that new government, municipal or federal government contract, and you need mobilization costs. I mean, now's the time to go and get the money. Margie, how could you let me forget that? But now is the time to go get the money, because the banks are incentivized to actually make these loans.
Right. I thought it was 100%.
It's 90.
Only kidding.
But you know what? And the SBA Express, okay. So the SBA Express normally would be a 50% guarantee for the banks. Now it's a 75% guarantee for the banks to do an SBA Express loan. And oh, by the way, now those loans go from $350,000 up to $1 million. So you can get an SBA Express loan for $1 million, and the bank will receive a 75% guarantee to do that loan for you. Oh my gosh, you need a line of credit? Now's the time to go get it. So here's the thing. You've gotten let's review. You've gotten the EIDL advance. You've received the EIDL loan. You've received the PPP first draw and second draw. Okay. Under debt relief, the SBA is paying principal and interest on your existing SBA loan for 3 months. Okay. Between now and, well, from February 1st to September 30, for a new SBA loan, 7A 504 microloan, the SBA is paying principal and interest on your new SBA loan. For your EIDL loan, you get anywhere from 18 to 24 months deferment in making your first payment. Oh my gosh. So you got money to sustain yourself. You have 18 to 24 months before you repay and start paying on an EIDL. Even if the PPP doesn't get forgiven 100%, you still only have a 1% loan. Folks, what's there not to like? Go get the money.
As long as there is money and it doesn't run out.
Okay. So I'm exhorting you, go get the money. It's there for you. So I'll close with that one, Margie.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to put this recording up on the website because everybody should be aware of all these latest programs. They figure, you know, oh, I already got my PPP 1 and PPP 2, so I'm done. You know, they have no idea all these other things are available or how it works. So thank you again so much.
Yes. All right. So I'll probably come back in another month, because by then the restaurant, right, the restaurant revitalization fund should be open, and the shutter venue opportunity grant should be open. And you know, who knows, by then we'll probably have another program. Okay.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'll get with you on another date.
Okay. All right. Have a good day, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you, Margie, for getting these set up. We appreciate it.
You're welcome, Joanne. Have a great day.
You
Thank
too.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Connie. Thanks.
You need me for anything?
Nope, all set. Thank you
Nope.
so much.
Have a great day.
Okay, bye.
Bye.